instructional video is on Student Companion Book, page 7. Number 16. Eugene made this graph of the inequality y is greater than 3x minus 3. Is the graph correct? Explain. So when graphing inequalities, we start by graphing the y-intercept first, -3, which he has done correctly. If we look at the other points that can be read clearly on the graph, to get from one point to the next, we have to go up 3 and over 1. Up 3 and over 1, meaning we would have a slope of 3. And so that 3x is correct. So he has graphed the line correctly. However, he made a mistake in step 2. Step 2 is deciding whether the line should be dashed or solid. A greater than symbol represents a dotted line, whereas he drew a solid line on his graph. So that was his first mistake. He should have used a dotted line. Step 3 is shading. It says that y is greater than 3x minus 3, and he did shade greater, the higher portion of the line, where you shade above. He did that part correctly. So his only mistake was step 2, using a solid line instead of a dotted line. Number 17, writing the equation of the inequality. We want to note that our inequality starts on the y-axis at the point -2. Our equation would be read as y equals -2 because the line is not going up or down, it's just straight across. Because it is a dotted line, it means we're going to use either the greater than or less than symbol. It will not include the equal to sign. Because the graph is shaded below, it means that we want to use the less than symbol. So our final answer would be y is less than -2. For number 18, we want to reference that the graph is on the y-axis at the origin, which is at 0. If we plot all of our points on the graph that we can read clearly, we then can find our pattern of going down 1 and over 1 to each point. That pattern continues all across the graph, going down 1 and over 1, meaning we have a slope of 1. And so our general equation is y equals 1x plus 0. You do not have to include the plus 0 in the equation. We then can reference the fact that it is a solid line. A solid line means that we will include the equal to symbol in our values. Step 3 is that it is shaded above the line, which means we want the greater than symbol. Y is greater than or equal to 1x. For number 19, we want to reference that our point is located on the x-axis at -4. It is not a diagonal line, so the -4 value is the only value that will be used. Because it is on the x-axis, the equation will read x equals -4. Step 2, it's a solid line. A solid line means that we're going to use the equal sign in our symbols. It is shaded on the larger side. It's the positive numbers, so that means we want the greater than symbol. So our final equation is x is greater than or equal to -4. For number 20, we want to reference that our starting point is on the y-axis at -3. If we plot all of the other points that are read clearly, we can find our slope pattern. We have to go up 1 and over 5, up 1 and over 5. So our slope would be 1 and 5. And our general equation would be y equals 1/5 x with the -3. Step 2 tells us that it is a dotted line. The dotted line means that it's going to be either the greater than or less than symbol. It is not going to include the equal sign value. It is shaded below the line, meaning we want the less than symbol. Our final equation is y is less than 1/5 x minus 3. For number 21, we want to reference that our starting point is on the y-axis at the origin, which is 0. If we plot the other points that are easily read, we can find our slope pattern going down 2 and over 1. Down 2, over 1. Down 2, over 1. And that pattern works for all points on the graph. Because it's going down, it means we have a -2 for our slope. So our general equation would be y equals -2x plus 0. We do not have to include the plus 0 in the equation, as it does not change anything. Step 2 tells us that it is a solid line, meaning we are going to include the equal symbol in our values. Step 3 tells us that it is shaded above the line, which means we want the greater than symbol. So our final equation is going to be y is greater than or equal to -2x. For number 22, we want to reference that our starting point is on the y-axis at +1. Looking at the other points that we can read clearly, we can connect them by going up 2 and then sideways 3. And so our slope value would be up 2 and sideways 3 for an answer of 2/3. Our general equation is y equals the 2/3 x with the +1. Step 2 tells us that it is a solid line, meaning that we are going to include the equal symbol with our inequality. It is shaded above the line in step 3, which tells us that we want the greater than symbol. So our final answer is going to be read as y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x +1. For number 23, it says select all of the points that are solutions to the inequality y is less than -1/2 x minus 1. So they have graphed the equation for you. When it asks what are the solutions, it wants to know which points are in the shaded area. So if we look at those individual points, -2 and 0 is on the line. Now, if it had said or equal to, and it was a solid line, we could pick that point. But because it is a dotted line, we are not going to pick that point. For our next point, we have -1.75 and -2.75, which would be about there. And again, these are just approximations, but it is within the shaded range, so that's a correct answer. Our next point, +4 and -3, again, is on the line. Had it been a solid line, we could pick that point, but because it is a dotted line, we will not pick that point. For the next one, -2.5 with a +3.25 puts us up here in the white section, so we're not going to pick that point. And then the last value, -5 and -4, would be down here, which is in the shaded blue region. So that last point is also a correct answer.